You're watching the News Hour at 9.
Let's begin the news hour tonight with a super scoop on Lockdown 2.0. What will be the government strategy in place after May 3rd? Our internal security editor, Nikunj Garg, joins me with details of the blueprint of the Modi government to assess the situation for dilution of curbs post May 3rd. What we can tell you for sure is that the government is preparing a national risk index before the Prime Minister's crucial meet with chief ministers on Monday morning. This risk index will form the basis of the extent to which curbs across the country will be lifted. More importantly, all districts will be tested under this index. The government is likely to leave it upon states to decide future course of action post May 3rd. Nikunj will give us some new details of this risk index. And Nikunj, my first question to you is simply this. Is it going to be easy for the government to make a risk index for every state and for all the 700 plus districts in the country? And how is this risk index going to work?
Well, Navika, there are six points on a matrix that is already functional. 2 new points have now been added, keeping in mind the dynamic situation. Remember, this is not a static situation. There are dynamic portions and the static portions. In the dynamic portions, 2 more points have now been added till June 30th, and the assessment will carry on till then. Each of the 745 districts will be tested. So there is, a district can today claim that it is coronavirus free, but it will also be tested. Based on all these 8 points of this matrix, the districts or the states will get the additional or the required elbow or leeway to decide at the state government's level and under their jurisdiction wherever the relaxations, in the graded relaxations in the curbs can be made. Now, this is for the first time post the national lockdown came into place, because remember, initially the state governments imposed the lockdown. Prime Minister announced it later. And last time when the Prime Minister met the Chief Minister, it was on the Chief Minister's urging that the national lockdown was extended for 15 more days. This is for the first time post that states will also get additional elbow room to take a decision under their jurisdiction, which district, what portions of a district, what tehsil, what taluka, they want to free for the existing curbs and give additional relaxations like inter or intra-district travel. Similarly, there are also inputs that will come from the state governments on Monday morning in the meeting with the chief ministers. And those inputs would then be enmeshed with the National Risk Assessment Plan in the next 6 days between 27th of May when the PM meets the Chief Ministers and 3rd of May when the present lockdown part 2 actually comes to an end. It comes to an end on 30th, but 3 more days because of various reasons are there. So therefore, 2-3 things are very critical. A National Risk Assessment, then the Prime Minister's intervention, Chief Minister's input, state governments on their own becoming equal stakeholders in the extensions of the lockdown is what is going to decide the future shape and size of the new lockdown post May 3.
Well, more breaking news coming in. Stand by, Nikunj. I have more information coming in. And the breaking news that's coming in, the first deliberations on this new National Risk Assessment Index will come tomorrow as Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Gauba will hold a meeting with all Chief Secretaries and DGPs of all states in the morning ahead of the Prime Minister's Monday meeting with Chief Ministers. So, Nikunj, when the Cabinet Secretary meets with DGPs and Chief Secretaries of all states, he will clearly be doing the basic homework for the Prime Minister ahead of his meeting with the Chief Minister. So details would already have come in terms of some of the inputs for that risk index, so that when they meet on Monday, the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers, they have a blueprint on how to proceed further in the next 6 days and come to a conclusion on what happens post 3rd of May when the lockdown officially comes to an end.
Well, absolutely, Navika. That's an all-critical meeting that Cabinet Secretary is chairing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Critical states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Delhi, their health secretaries have also been told to participate. Remember, they, at this point in time, when you and I speak, comprise the bulk of the cases of coronavirus in the country, and therefore their health secretaries would also participate. The entire deliberation would focus on what next to be done on 3rd of May. Remember, politicians will always discuss larger political and administrative issues will always be thrashed out by the bureaucrats. That meeting will be chaired by the Cabinet Secretary. We are breaking it right now. In just few hours from now, we will have that meeting at 10 a.m. in the morning in the Cabinet Secretariat for our viewers at Newshour.
Well, clearly 10 a.m. is the big meeting, and we'll be looking forward to that meeting. And Nikunj, I'm sure you'll get us some insights into what transpired in that meeting so that we have a heads up on what will be the blueprint on the table when the Prime Minister meets Chief Ministers on Monday morning. Thank you, Nikunj, for joining me on the Newshour. Now let's take a look at the overall corona numbers this evening. The big headline today is that there has been no community transmission, and India has now steered clear from stage 3 of the novel coronavirus. Even though we added 1,684 new cases in the last 24 hours, the silver lining is that India's recovery rate has jumped past 20%. Over 80 districts have not recorded a single new case in the last 14 days, but the spike in metropolitan cities like Mumbai, Delhi and now Chennai is the big challenge ahead. 4 new central teams too have been formed, which will take a stock of the situation in Ahmedabad, Surat, Chennai and Hyderabad, where the situation demands extra caution. Listen in to the Health Ministry's official version, which came in earlier this evening.
Total cases under medical supervision are 17,610. कल से आज तक में 491 लोग क्योर हुए हैं, विच टेक्स की हमारी जो टोटल क्योर होने वालों की संख्या को 4,748 लेके जाती है. इसके द्वारा हमारा रिकवरी रेट अब अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 20.57% है. यह हम सब लोगों के लिए एक बहुत ही पॉजिटिव न्यूज़ है. देश में टोटल 80 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स ऐसे हैं जहां इससे पहले केस आए थे, लेकिन पिछले 14 दिनों से वहां पर कोई केस नहीं आया है.
So you're looking at that flow chart, and that gives you an indication of how things are proceeding across the country. And on Monday, that is really going to be the issue that will be on the table when the Prime Minister and Chief Ministers take a call on the future of the lockdown. Well, the whole world is now just chasing one dream, and that is to find the cure for coronavirus. And nations across the globe are making a concerted effort. While UK has already begun a vaccine trial, a US government study today claimed that sunlight along with humidity can retard the growth of the virus. India, on the other hand, has got encouraging reports on the plasma therapy. And now, an Israeli scientist claims that he is 2/3 into developing a vaccine for COVID-19. And that man, Professor Jonathan Gershoni from Tel Aviv University School of Molecular Cell Biology, joins me live on the Newshour. Also joining me tonight is Dr. Randeep Guleria, who is the director from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And with me tonight is Dr. M.V. Pillai, clinical professor, hematology and oncology, Thomas Jefferson University, joining me live from the US. My first question to you, Dr. Guleria. Dr. Guleria, you've seen the reports that have come out of the plasma therapy. Is this the dream come true that India was probably waiting for? The success rate, can this be a widely used cure for coronavirus? And how seriously ill patients can this particular option be exercised for?
So convalescent plasma, which is what plasma therapy is all about, is not something which is new. It's a treatment which has been there for over 100 years. It was used in the Spanish flu also. More recently, it was used in Ebola. And there are now studies from the US and small trials which have shown that it may work. And based on that, a number of centers in India have started trying to use this therapy. Still early days, it's a research study which we need to see how effective it is. It basically means you're taking the plasma or the blood from people who have recovered and they have antibodies in this, and you're giving it to sick patients who are on a ventilator, who are critically ill. With these antibodies going into this person's circulation, it will help in a faster recovery. But we need more data because COVID-19 causes a complex illness. It causes a cytokine storm. It causes some degree of vasculopathy, and we need to understand it in totality before we say any one form of therapy is the magic bullet.
Dr. Guleria, I also want to ask you another question which the Prime Minister stated in his statement today, which is at the level of 5 lakh tests, which is the level at which India is. Different countries have shown different number of COVID positive cases. And Nizam Bhai, if we can just play out that graphic. I want to ask you, has India, being the lowest of this comparison between countries, actually shown us that we are better off than other countries? Have we been able to beat the kind of infection rates that we saw in other countries like the United States, UK, Italy, Spain? Or do you think it's early days yet to really talk about this?
So if you look at the data, India has been one of those few countries which has done very well. South Korea is another country which has done well. And as you said, if you look at the current data of 500,000 tests and the number of positivity, we have actually a very low positivity rate, suggesting that the lockdown and the measures that we started very early have been effective, and that has led to a lesser number of cases despite the fact that the number of tests are the same if you look at it on a comparison basis as compared to other developed countries. So it does show that our social distancing, hand washing, aggressive lockdown has worked, and that has actually helped us to keep the curve flat and not have this huge spike of cases with increasing number of cases. And despite large number of tests, our case continues to be low.
Hello.
Dr. Pillai, I want to ask you, there is a United States study that has really come in.
Can you be a little louder?
Yeah.
Can you be a little louder?
Okay, I'll make that louder. I said there is a study that's come in from the United States, the Homeland Security's department, which is looking at corona virus and its response to it, has said that sunlight and humidity may have a role in destroying the coronavirus. Do you think at the moment there is enough evidence to prove that theory right?
I think this is a laboratory study from the Department of Homeland Security at their laboratory in Maryland. And it makes sense because if you really look at the distribution of the recent COVID-19 as it comes down to the equator, the incidence rate and the mortality rate is different from what we found in the northern hemisphere. Now, they couldn't pinpoint a reason. Is it because of the climatic change of a high environmental temperature, or is it because of the humidity? I think the consensus seems to be moving towards the dynamics of the humidity in the presence of high environmental temperature. What the University of Maryland and the Department of Homeland Security has demonstrated, if you keep the coronavirus at 70 to 74 degree temperature inside the room, and then if you keep the humidity at 20%, their half-life is for about 60 minutes. If you take it out to a higher temperature and the humidity is doubled, these viruses can last only for 30 seconds. So in laboratory studies, we are showing that these viruses cannot stand hot, humid environment. Now, this is one study. It has to be duplicated. It has to be confirmed in different parts of the world. But it makes sense because now coming from Kerala, now we didn't have any major problems with the COVID-19 epidemic this time. In fact, you can see that our death rate is very low. In actual numerics, we had only 2 or maybe 3 deaths. And most of the patients who caught the infection had the mild, maybe the moderate forms of infection. So the big question is, has this virus mutated? Has it trickled down to the equatorial region? Or has it been destroyed by the environmental temperature and humidity? So we are looking with
that should be welcome news to people in India, because heat and humidity are both, that we will have in good measure in the coming months. And if that can be a cure to destroying the virus, I think that would be good news. I want to ask Professor Gershoni from Tel Aviv in Israel. You and your team are working on the vaccine. How close are you to finalizing this vaccine, and have trials started yet?
Well, first of all, I would like to mention that we have a small team at Tel Aviv University, and one of the lead figures is Dr. Lakshmi Narasaya Upalapati, actually a co-patriot of yours, an excellent scientist from India, and we're delighted working together. We have been trying to develop a candidate for a vaccine, and hopefully in the next month or so, the scientific development of this unique target for a vaccine will be in a very advanced stage. Now, it won't be ready for injections, obviously, because we're a research facility. And as a research facility, we don't have the setup to make millions and millions of vaccine doses. So we'll have to partner with the industry. But we do believe that in the course of the next month or so, we should have a nice prototype of the vaccine that we are proposing.
Well, Professor Gershoni, what do you think is going to be the time when the trial stage will come to an end? And can we say that we may be ready very soon? Is it going to be 3 or 4 weeks? And after that commercial production, how long is that going to take to make your prototype into a commercially viable alternative?
Well, this is, again, a problem, because we're going to have to, first of all, partner with an industry. And if there's any Indian industry that would like to partner with us, we would be happy to collaborate. But I would assume that in the course of the next few months, maybe a half a year, the vaccine modality, the prototype will be ready for testing in humans. And then it would take phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials, which is usually something about a year. So I don't honestly believe that there will be a functional vaccine to receive a shot in anything closer than a year from today.
Well, as I come to the end of this section, I just want to ask Dr. Randeep Guleria. Dr. Randeep Guleria, I just want to ask you, and many people still are in a state of disbelief that India has such low numbers. I want to ask you, are the numbers that we are reporting the real numbers? Is there a stigma attached to COVID? Are people not coming forward? What's the real secret behind this low number?
It's a combination of several
So I don't think the
factors.
numbers are wrong. If you start looking at the data across the country and from various centers, you will actually see that the reporting is quite correct. We're also looking at surveillance data, which is from various other centers like the IEDSP, which looks at the number of cases which are being reported with SARI or influenza-like illness, and there also the numbers are not very high. So I think our lockdown and our social distancing has actually helped.
And we need to continue this for a longer period of time. As a doctor, would you say that? Because many people are looking forward to the May 3rd lifting of the lockdown.
Oh, that is just an arbitrary number.
So I think a balance needs to be started, because it depends on what is happening. We need to see how things are being done, because it will depend upon whether it's an issue of the economic impact versus the health effect. And you have to look at hot spots and cold spots and then take a decision. And as you said, there is a matrix which would be developed to look at what are the areas which are safe and where the lockdown can be lifted, where you need to have it, because if there are hotspots and there are a large number of cases, I think there you would need to continue to have some degree of a lockdown.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the News Hour tonight, because this is information in terms of cure, in terms of alternatives like plasma therapy that India was waiting to hear. And thank you very much for bringing those experienced voices to our viewers tonight.